Hello, and welcome to another episode of Babes in Bookland. I'm your host, Alex Franca, and my friend Jaime is back with us today as we discuss Blissful Thinking, a memoir of overcoming the wellness revolution by LL Kirchner. Before we get to the episode, here's another review from Apple Podcasts. This one's from Chow Suze. Love this podcast. Alex is a natural host and does a great job reviewing each book while also seamlessly engaging with the guest to highlight how their own experiences relate to the book. Thanks, Suze. It's very sweet. And Jaime has got some good stuff for us today, so let's get to the episode. Hi, Jaime.
Hi, Alex.
I'm so glad that you're here with me today. How are you?
Feeling very blissful already.
Oh, great. Good. You're on the right track. So I know that you didn't get a chance to read this book, but I also know that you have been very purposeful about your own wellness journey. And I look forward to our discussion about all things wellness. Lisa's book is specifically about her spiritual wellness journey. I think along with any mental, emotional, spiritual wellness journey, there's a physical aspect. Lisa partakes in yoga. She goes to a yoga retreat. She introduces her readers to lesser known ways of discovering wellness and inner peace. She writes about how her parents owned a health club growing up, but this isn't a book about drinking green smoothies and detoxes. It's a book about a woman reeling from a divorce, rediscovering her self-worth, and fighting hard to maintain her sobriety. What this book mostly did for me was inspire me to dive deeper into thinking about the building blocks of my own wellness journey. Okay, so let's get into it. This book was published in 2023, and this is the dedication. For anyone still bound by guilt to toxic family dynamics, there is a way out of shame, and for my mother, always. Let's start with the quick topics. First quick topic. Lisa introduced this phrase to me, emotional sobriety. I had never heard it before, and this is my understanding as she writes about it. Being emotionally sober basically means that you are comfortable being present with all of your feelings without any one of them defining or controlling you, which I think is a very lovely place to kind of try to exist. She has met another man at a certain point as a friend. They both were addicts and have gone through AA. And he talks about how he has to stop hiding from other people, but maintain his boundaries, which is his practice of emotional sobriety. And I just thought that that was such an interesting phrase. I wanted to know what you thought about it.
I don't know that I love the phrase. I love how they explain it, the meaning behind it. I think it maybe, I would say something like emotional authenticity or emotional resilience or clarity, like some of those things would maybe stick better. But I guess when you think of like the opposite, the antonym might be emotional toxicity or something of that nature. Emotionally drunk, like what does that mean? But yeah, I like the idea behind it for sure.
Lisa also talks about Pema Chödrön. Have you ever heard of Pema Chödrön?
I have, but I haven't read any of her stuff.
Pema Chödrön is an American nun in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Lisa writes this about her. Chödrön compared people beginning with meditation practice to children with scabies, old enough to scratch the itch, but not old enough to know that scratching makes scabies worse. Her point was that symptom relief didn't address the root of the problem. Chödrön's talk reminded me of what a mentor in sobriety had told me early on. Drinking isn't your problem. You're not drinking anymore. Your problem is thinking. I can very much relate to this thinking, overthinking situation, and we'll get into that. But here's a little bit more info about Pema. Pema Chödrön was born in 1936 in New York City. She taught as an elementary school teacher for many years. While in her mid-30s, Pema traveled to the French Alps and encountered Lama Chim Rinpoche, with whom she studied for several years. She became a novice nun in 1974, and she was asked to work towards the establishment of a monastery for Western monks and nuns. She currently teaches in the United States and Canada, and she plans for an increased amount of time in solitary retreat, which we'll talk more about solitary retreat later. Pema is interested in helping establish the monastic tradition in the West, as well as continuing her work with Buddhists of all traditions, sharing ideas and teachings. She's written several books. I wanted to share a couple of quotes by her because because this woman seems incredible. And I definitely want to read some of her books, which I think are not memoirs as much as I think they're more like spiritual guidance books. So these are a couple of her quotes. You are the sky, everything else, it's just the weather. Isn't that kind of lovely to think about? Because it makes it feel like anything that happens to you is not bigger than you. If you are the sky and everything else is just the weather. That's what that quote makes me feel.
Yeah. I wonder, part of me was like, if everything else is the weather and the weather is the one thing we have no control over, we just have to weather the weather. But no, I like your thought that it's not bigger than you. Yeah, that makes it sit better. Yeah, I also didn't realize that there were Buddhist nuns, which I literally have a Buddhist monk in my neighborhood who I see riding an electric tricycle in his robe.
An
all
electric
the time.
tricycle? A tricycle?
Electric tricycle.
That's amazing.
With a basket and the orange robe and shaved head. And I don't know why it never occurred to me that there would be Buddhist nuns as well. But yeah, just Buddhism in general, I've been curious and continue to like learn more about. But I think it's interesting that it's kind of a non-religion religion because there's no deity. It's just kind of way of life wisdom.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about it because Lisa kind of dabbles in Buddhism at a certain point, but it feels like if there was a deity, it would just be energy. That's kind of like,
or nature.
Yeah.
I'm curious if we're going to get into just anytime we're talking about wellness or pursuing wellness, there are people trying to commodify it, right? And to make money from us. So doing that in a way that is discerning and making sure that you're not getting taken advantage of and finding what works for you.
It's tricky when it's more of a spiritual wellness than a physical wellness, because I think physical wellness, there's a way to actually track whether it's working or not.
Right.
Okay, so another great quote from Pema Chödrön. The only reason we don't open our hearts and minds to other people is that they trigger confusion in us that we don't feel brave enough or sane enough to deal with. To the degree that we look clearly and compassionately at ourselves, we feel confident and fearless about looking into someone else's eyes.
Recognizing that we are only seeing things from our own vantage point. Like there's no way to ever truly see things from someone else. You can attempt to see things from other people's view, but like we're literally in our own realities, and that's it. Yeah. So if something bothers me about some person, like recognizing, hey, that might not bother other people about them. Or, if somebody gives me some critical feedback, other people might not feel the same way. We're all just coming from our own angles. And it's like, there's so much that's outside of our perspective that we just can't even conceive. I'd like to Freaky Friday with someone, but not actually just be in their body. Like it'd be interesting to see what it's like to be in their brain for a day.
Would you want a Freaky Friday with somebody completely opposite of you? Or would you want a Freaky Friday with somebody that kind of like already has similar values and worldviews, but just is different enough?
Maybe neither. The one that comes to my head is like, I tell my husband sometimes, I'm like, I wish you could be in my brain for a day just to like see and I would like to be in his just to see what it's like to live his existence for a moment, because we live together, right?
Yeah.
And both work from home. Like we spend so much time together, and yet I don't know, it's like the longer you're together, the more you realize you can never fully know someone but yourself. And we're just kind of living in parallel realities.
It is a crazy concept to grasp when you think about all of the lives and all of the problems and all of the things that other people have to deal with. When you really stop and make everybody a main character of their own story, as opposed to these like side characters in your story.
Yeah.
Can be
it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
When I think about that, when I look at cars on the road, right? It's so easy to get like upset at cars and to not view them as people, but all of those vehicles, other than a Tesla, are being driven by a human. And the self-driving ones still have humans in them, but to realize that, each of those individuals have lives that are as complex as yours.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost too much. Kind of just exactly what you said. You never know what that person's dealing with. That's what I try to tell myself. That's what I try to teach my daughter. Just trying to have compassion, kind of like Pema says. In her next quote, she says, compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It is a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity.
To swing back to you sharing saying about the sky and the weather and how grand we are and big. The opposite of that, I don't know if you've ever watched it, but you should if you haven't. Carl Sagan's Little Blue Dot. It's a short little video. You can find it on YouTube, but it's the Earth that he's speaking of from, looking at the Earth as this little blue dot in the universe. And it just makes you realize how small we all are, right? So we're both.
That's the key. Feel big and feel small at the same time. Then you'll be great.
Feel confused as fuck.
Lisa includes this one in her memoir. The most difficult times for many of us are the ones we give ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of just emphasizes how much our perspective influences our perception of reality. Right?
And our mindset.
Yes. So the same things can occur to different people, and the way they think about them influences their emotions, I guess.
And their choices, the reactions.
Yeah. Yes. There's a author I like, speaker author, Adam Grant. He's done some viral TED Talks, written some good books, but he talks about trying to pursue pronoia as the opposite of paranoia.
Ooh.
What would it be like if we just assumed that good things would happen to us, or assumed good intent? And I know research about people who are positive thinkers, right? And they just, more good things happen to them if you're an optimist. And part of that, you could say it's like The Secret, right? It's manifesting, but it's also just your perception becomes your reality. So easier said than done.
It's definitely easier said than done.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that quote too from The Perks of Being a Wallflower. We accept the love we feel we deserve. And if we feel we deserve good things, if we feel we accept great love, then I think that we do attract that. I have a friend who, she is sunshine. She's just always been bright and happy and optimistic, and things have always kind of worked out for her. And I was always in awe of it because I feel like I didn't move through life the same way. And so now I'm trying to move through life the same way. But it is hard to completely change the way that you think and view the world, because this is just stuff that we've been doing now for so many years. It's like a complete 180,
And it makes me wonder, in line with this book and thinking about bliss, right? There's like the concept of blissful ignorance, and it's like, is emotional intelligence at odds with that? Like, can we both be emotionally intelligent and have blissful thoughts, or like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I think so. I'm working hard towards that. I'm working really hard towards assuming the best.
Yeah.
I'll keep you posted.
Keep me posted.
Okay. So the last quick topic is cold plunges.
No.
You and I did a cold plunge together.
We did. Although in hindsight, we popped out of the water as fast as we could. I've learned that you're supposed to stay to the point where you can control your breathing, right? To teach yourself to recover effectively from moments of panic.
Exactly. I think it's still a great thing if you just kind of jump in some cold water. At least for me, it still is this like invigorating rush that happens. But yeah, I think in order to get the full benefits of it, you are supposed to stay. The longest cold plunge I ever did was 3 minutes. It was in the wintertime. So our pool was probably in the 50s. It was very cold. It got to the point where I was so cold that I felt warm again. It's not something that I look forward to. I kind of psych myself out about it. And so it's hard for me to do it. But NPR had a great read about the scientific evidence of cold plunges, which is when you spend time in cold water between 38 and 60 degrees, but it's largely inconclusive. Claims are decreased inflammation and increased immunity, increased circulation, a mood booster. It may up your metabolism, may help you with post-workout soreness, but ultimately it's kind of like if you think it works, then it works.
It makes me think of like, it's the opposite of a steam room, right? Or a sauna, like the opposite, but still touts having some of the same outcomes. And I wonder if 20 years from now, we're going to be like, remember when cold plunging was a thing? Like that was so silly. But yeah, whatever works for you. I mean, unless you have some serious medical issues, like it's probably not going to do you harm to give it
Yeah.
a go.
But maybe talk to your
Um,
doctor before you do anything that intense because it is very
yeah.
intense feeling. I do think I slept better that night. I will say, if you're having a negative thought, splash some cold ass water in your face and that thought will go away
Yeah.
because you will be shocked.
And I will add that even before this current cold plunging craze came to be, I've had a regular habit for years now of ending my showers with cold water. Both, I mean, because I personally buy into it closes the hair cuticle and your pores shrink. So it just makes your skin and hair nicer, more, locks in moisture. I don't know. But also because I take morning showers. So like the hot water feels good, but it also kind of makes me mellow. So the cold water blast at the end, it's just a short bit and then it kind of wakes me back up.
And I think for me too, with cold plunges, it's sort of pushing myself past my own limitation. I appreciate the courage that I work up to do it when I do it. And then when I am able to stay in the pool for a little while longer than I normally would, it just reminds me that I am capable of doing hard things. So even if it's just that, even if there is no physical boost or just giving yourself a challenge and then knowing that you can rise to the challenge is always a really cool place to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into some deeper discussion topics. All right, Jaime, what does wellness mean to you? That's a big question.
Well. So to me, wellness, I don't know that I think of it as being any different than well-being. I think of them as kind of one and the same. And I think of it as like, what does it mean to live well? And for me, there's two things that come up. One, like longevity, right? I think most people would agree that living a good life means a long life. And then the other piece of that is like quality of that life. So not just like quantity and duration, but the quality of it. Is it a life that you feel physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all the realms of our being feel like they are good, right?
Yeah.
Optimizing the good, minimizing the bad.
Yeah, I think that's really, really well said. I just wanted to give you the Merriam-Webster definition of wellness.
What does Miriam have to say?
The quality or state of being in good health, especially as an actively sought goal. Okay, so good health. And I do think spiritual, mental, physical, emotional health.
Financial health.
Yeah,
There's so many
that's true.
modes of it.
When I suggested this memoir to you, you recommended that I also read Christy Harrison's book, The Wellness Trap. And I did, and I wanted to sprinkle in a few takeaways from that as well.
So wellness is a trillion-dollar industry globally, specifically about 5.6 trillion in 2022. And from Harrison's book, The Wellness Trap, she writes, according to the Global Wellness Institute, wellness is not a passive or static state, but rather an active pursuit that is associated with intentions, choices, and actions as we work toward an optimal state of health and well-being. She adds, wellness is defined by things you do. Wellness culture is the belief system that underlies all these pursuits. It's a set of values that equates wellness with moral goodness and hoists certain behaviors as the path to achieving that supposed rectitude. And rectitude means morally correct behavior, because I didn't know that, which I thought was really interesting to view wellness as a pursuit, as an action, as opposed to a final goal, because there is no final goal because you're still living. So there's always something that you're reaching for. So how do you feel like you've accomplished it?
Yeah. I guess like getting to the point where you feel like, okay, I'm in a good place and now I just need to maintain. Because if you stop doing everything that you've been doing, you'll backslide, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too to think of what is the role of acknowledging like good enough. Because if we are always trying to optimize, like that can produce a lot of stress and anxiety. And that's certainly the antithesis of wellness.
Yep, agreed. Christy argues in her book that wellness is the rich person's version of health and has an added layer of elitism to it because it's about the relentless pursuit of the apex of health in a way that only people who are rich in both time and money can truly afford. She writes, wellness is true to well-being what social media is to human connection, an ongoing attempt to attain the pinnacle of the thing, which only sometimes succeeds and more often takes people further from their objectives to the tune of billions of dollars a year. And Lisa acknowledges this in the introduction to her book. She actually writes, this is back to Blissful Thinking, the privileges inherent in my story that I'm white and without children, so able to travel, go largely unmentioned within the text, unless related to my quest. Personally, I find it jarring when I sense attempts to ward off potential criticism within a narrative. Perhaps it's the wiser approach, but when my heart was breaking and I thrashed in the dark, my driving concern was pain relief. So I did appreciate that she acknowledged that, because anybody who has the time to go stay at a yoga retreat and then do some of these other things that she's doing, they definitely are in a place of privilege. And it does make you wonder, can you achieve wellness or strive for wellness without being in a place of privilege?
Right. This makes me think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you familiar?
I have heard of this before. Yeah, but explain it.
It's like kind of psychology pyramid that says that our basic human needs start at the bottom of the pyramid. We need food, we need water, we need shelter. And then from there, it builds up to the peak of the pyramid is self-actualization, which is kind of where I see wellness coming into play, right? And to your point, yeah, how can you achieve, we'll tie in Buddhism here too, like enlightenment and nirvana? Like if you are just met with the daily struggle to just like have a roof over your head and have food in your stomach, like it's a different thing than saying like, I choose to go on a fast, right? I don't think wellness is talked about more than it's talked about in circles with folks like ourselves who have at least like some degree of privilege and stability in life and are looking to make it even better, right? It's optimization. It's not survival that we're talking about.
Yeah. I do want to definitely just recognize that Lisa is doing this because she's hit rock bottom in her personal life. Her husband basically divorces her out of nowhere, leaving her in a foreign country to pick up the pieces of her life without him and figure out what that next chapter looks like, all while trying to keep the demon of addiction at bay.
And she had already achieved sobriety by the time her husband got divorced. So that was not the thing that prompted their separation, her addiction.
Correct. It, to me, it's coming from a different place than
I'm doing well and I want to be doing better. It's for her, it is, I guess, trying to psychologically survive, even if she is physically surviving.
Exactly. But I think it's a really interesting thing to think about because it definitely feels like wellness is a privilege and for the privileged. And I definitely just wanted to acknowledge that before we really get into it.
And it doesn't need to be like a suffering competition, right? Like regardless of your life details, right? Everyone's hardest thing is their hardest thing until something harder happens.
Yeah.
And the feelings that come along with that can feel very similar human to human, even if the circumstances are really different.
Yeah. Harrison also writes this in The Wellness Trap. The world can be a scary place, and wellness culture promises to make it safer by reducing your risks. It's only human to look for ways to cope, and it's a sign of our resilience that we try. That's a lovely sentiment. Wellness is not all in all a bad thing.
It gets a bad rap when products are peddled with snake oil promises when they're either expensive and don't work or potentially dangerous. And to be clear, Lisa's book is more about a pursuit of a spiritual and emotional and mental bliss, hence blissful thinking. We're not talking about moon juice and jade eggs. So let's get to Lisa and her journey.
Lisa's husband asks her for a divorce, like I said, leaving her with a job in Qatar, a country that she had moved to for his work opportunity. She fears that this rug being pulled out from under her will catapult her back into bad habits, and she works really hard to hang on to her sobriety because thoughts and feelings of insignificance are completely overtaking her. At one point, she writes in the book how she thinks polygamy might be a gentler approach, keeping all the wives around instead of discarding them. To me, that is definitely a woman who is still very much in love and hurt.
In the bargaining phase of grief.
Yeah.
Right. Did he leave her for another person? That's kind of what it sounds like. Not just like, I'd rather be alone than be with you, but maybe if it wasn't actually someone else yet, he wanted to pursue finding someone else.
She does talk about how after some time, I want to say chronologically, the book, it was a little confusing to follow, but it seems like about a year after he asked her for a divorce, he mentions getting a dog and staying someplace with another person. She does feel very quickly replaced, but I don't know if he left her for someone. She definitely doesn't make that clear if that's what happened or if that's what she thinks.
And you said they did not have children, right?
Right.
So like my spouse and I are child free by choice. And like it's occurred to me that if we certainly hope this never happens, but if we were to split at some point, like there's nothing tying us to one another in a way that people who share children like you and your spouse like would forever be tied unless one of you decided to be an absentee parent. But I would not see that happening, obviously. So,
I was a child of divorce. So my parents worked really hard to put whatever aside so that they could come together and co-parent me as best as they could.
But I know it wasn't always easy for my mom. I do think it would be such a weird feeling to be so intimately involved with someone for years, and then all of a sudden they're out of your life completely. I know this is way lower stakes, but like I think of past best friends that have been there for such pivotal moments of my life. And while I am really fortunate that I still have so many wonderful friends in my life, like you, James, who have been there through lots of ups and downs, it is weird because they were there for me through some big moments in my life. And now they're not.
makes me think too. I know multiple people who had first marriages without children that ended. And it's like, that was somebody you were married to and you literally don't speak to each other.
That's crazy.
You're just strangers now.
It's hard for me to wrap my brain around that. Back to Lisa. Though she is scared, she chooses to resign from her job in Qatar and she joins a teacher training program, a yoga teacher training program course at the Brahmani Yoga Shala in Goa, India. She writes, taking a deep breath, I dared to hope. Maybe I'd once and for all lose this darkness, this void I tried to sate with drugs and alcohol and sex and shopping and sugar. And I just think it takes so much courage to discover the ways that we try to cope or put band-aids on deep wounds. Until you get to the root of the issue, you can't heal.
You can't just have you can cold turkey stop things, but yeah, unless you do that deeper work too, like something else is going to take its place eventually, or it will resurface.
So Lisa goes to Goa and she's having a really difficult time with the yoga course. It's Ashtanga yoga, which is a progressional sequence where you only move on to the next posture once you've mastered the one you're currently on. She tries to adopt vegetarianism as she feels is the yogi way, but her body's really struggling to get enough calories. And with the lack of iron, she's feeling really tired. So she's feeling physically unable to do it. And her friend is like, girl, just eat a hamburger.
It was a light bulb moment for her that she can be wholeheartedly on this journey and still do things her own way in order to continue her pursuit. And I know that I'm guilty of sometimes forcing myself to do it the quote right way, when really I need to focus on what is the right way for me and my body so that I still find joy in it and want to continue doing it.
Yeah, whatever you're pursuing, like feel empowered to customize it to meet your unique needs, because nobody's path in life is exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
Our roadmaps are all going to need to be a little different.
God, I love how you just say everything that I'm trying to articulate so much better than me. I want to know more about yoga in your life.
The big thing that I've gotten from yoga is like being conscious of my breathing. That's a tool that like once you make it a habit, it sticks with you and you can come back to that at any point that you're having trouble sleeping or feeling on the verge of a panic attack. Like having some tools to breathe mindfully and using that as a way to channel, a little sciencey here, but your parasympathetic nervous system, that's like the rest and digest, versus the sympathetic is like fight, flight, freeze, etc. So being able to kind of like have some control over your physiology.
Yeah. And it's an incredible tool to have. And it's an empowering tool as well. Yoga is such a beautiful thing to have a part of your life because I think that it can support you.
Yeah. It's a good tool for self-discovery. And if you've gotten a bad taste in your mouth from like your exposure to it thus far, maybe try a different mode of it, because there's not just one type. There's not just one instructor.
There's not just one school of thought.
Exactly. There's so many different ones. I'm curious, did Lisa, I assume that she was not a novice when she decided she was going to go do a yoga teacher training. Is that accurate? She was already like into it, or was this just like hey, I've never done it and this seems like a good idea?
Yoga was very much a part of her life already, yes, which I think is why she knew to turn to it during this rock bottom moment. She was optimistic that it would be helpful for her.
So Lisa completes the training course. She doesn't talk about this at all, but she mentions that she tries Watsu, which is rebirthing therapy. And I Googled it a little bit and I only came across aquatic Watsu. And I guess you kind of go through being reborn in the water.
I'm just imagining somebody like screaming like a newborn child.
But that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
just look it up, rebirth yourself, literally give yourself a fresh start. I don't know. There are weirder things that people do, right? All right. So if anybody has ever gone through a Watsu rebirthing therapy, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you about it. I would love to learn more. There really isn't a lot of information out there. Maybe that's why Lisa couldn't say anything about it. Maybe it's like super hush hush. It's one of the real secrets of the world. Okay, so Lisa acknowledges that maybe this Watsu thing is a little woo-woo out there, but she writes, I vowed if it would help me heal, I would say yes to any spiritual invitation laid before me, no matter how absurd it might seem. So after she goes through the yoga teacher training, she goes to a meditation retreat. And the type of meditation is called Vipassana, Vipassana, which is where you sit in silence for 10 straight days. Silence.
Not just silence, but you sit in silence for 10 days?
When you go and sign up at this place, you go to a physical place and you are silent for 10 days. But the main focus of being there is to sit in meditation in the silence. So, but you also you're not allowed to talk to people when you're brushing your teeth and you're eating your meals, all silent all the time.
I told my husband that I wanted to do one before, and he was like, how about you try being silent for an hour? And I was like, burn, ouch. But no, good point. Yeah, you definitely don't need to go full 180 if you're interested in it. You could do a smaller scale self-challenge of I'm going to try not talking for a whole day. Plan it around your work and the people that you have to do things to carve that out at home. That's different than going somewhere physical to do it. But yeah.
I think it'd be interesting just to challenge yourself. If you're a talkative, chatty person, you're going out to dinner with a friend, challenge yourself to listen more, talk less.
Sure.
Obviously, this is a very specific case because this is a meditation retreat. And while she and the group are meditating, they are listening to speakers speak. It's a guided situation. So it's not complete silence. I think that would be really hard. But she writes that they say Vipassana helps you replace anger and misery with an unshakable foundation of love and happiness. So that's what she's aiming for. This is the part of the book where Lisa introduces us to the inner Buddha concept. She writes, a golden essence of pure love, supposedly housed at the center of every human being. Our earthly task was to make it shine, and meditation was supposed to help. I really love that idea. I love this idea of having this center of your soul, and your earthly task is to help it shine, and finding the tools to do so, which meditation is a very difficult thing for me personally. It is very hard for me to sit in silence and not cling on to thoughts. There are lots of different types of meditation. As I was reading the book, I was curious about learning more of the different types. And there are types of meditation where you're supposed to focus on a flame or a particular object, and that helps you take yourself out of your head. There's guided meditations, there's visualization meditations. So again, if meditation is something that you've tried like me, and the type that you've tried didn't quite serve you or keep you interested in continuing, there are other paths. But also, as Lisa writes at a certain point, one of her teachers tells her that meditation is not supposed to be easy. It's hard work because it's not something that we're wired to do naturally. We have to practice at it.
I'm with you in that it's something that I've dabbled in that I haven't developed a routine around or found something that really stuck. But I know I was just speaking about breathing, and I think conscious breathing is a form of meditation, right? It's just
that's a huge part of a lot of meditations, actually. It's just focusing on your inhale and exhales. And you're supposed to just let the thoughts that pop up, you're just supposed to acknowledge them, but not interact with them. And that's where I always struggled. Because as soon as a thought would come in, I'd be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I would have conversations with myself in my head. It's crazy up in here, Jaime. It's crazy up in this head.
Oh, I know.
It's hard to silence it. So Lisa decides to go to this retreat, and she writes, my deepest wish was that 10 days of sitting in silence would reveal hard truths about myself that years of self-inflicted toxic positivity had failed to erase.
So I guess the toxic positivity, though, would be if a person isn't able to appropriately feel when things if something tragic happens, being able to lean into the hard emotions too, the unpleasant emotions also, or somebody who doesn't know how to honor other people's feelings and respect other people's feelings and just wants them to always be in a good mood too.
You have to know how to differentiate you purposefully choosing to see joy in something or ignoring bad feelings and not dealing with them.
There you go. Yeah.
So the goal of this meditation is transformation through self-observation. And a lot of it is observing your breathing, like you were talking about. She writes, the Pasana practice was meant to help me pay less attention to the stories my brain loved to tell, which I totally resonated with. And it's exactly, I think what we've been talking about a lot is your reality. It's all from your own perspective, but there is a mindset that you are in control of once you learn these tools to help you control it and to help you guide it. I think for Lisa, it was finding a place where she could have a thought, acknowledge the thought, but not engage with it, not let it send her down a spiral or make her feel bad about herself. And that's really what meditation is supposed to be for.
That makes me think of a Buddhist psychologist that I really like, Tara Brach. And a tool that I've gotten from her is called RAIN. And it is kind of a form of, it could be meditation, but really it's like if you find yourself in a thought spiral or you're just like feeling really badly, whatever the bad feeling is. First stop is just recognize that you're having that feeling or what's going on inside you, kind of just naming it. A is allowing it, because if we don't allow ourselves to feel that feeling, we're adding resistance. And if you haven't heard the equation of pain plus resistance equals suffering, like you can feel pain without suffering if you just like allow yourself to feel your feelings. In RAIN is investigate, seeing if you can figure out like what spurred that, what's behind it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but trying. And then the final one that I think is like most important is N for nurture. And she and a lot of others in similar work that I've read and learned of talk about self-parenting a lot. Like that's our job as adults who are no longer being nurtured, by our own parents, or maybe never were, you never know. But like what do I need to do for myself to take care of myself right now? And that can look like a lot of different things. But yeah, the RAIN tool, I come back to it a lot for really, it's all in the same vein as mindfulness. And her book, if you want to check it out, is called Radical Compassion. It's one of many that she's written.
Oh, I love that.
I'm going to check that book out. Thank you.
So through this retreat, Lisa kind of comes to this conclusion. She realizes that she was using alcohol to cope with feeling like she didn't matter. She writes later in the book about how her mother just casually told her one time that Lisa was lucky that she didn't have kids. So it makes sense to me that Lisa is feeling insignificant. She was picking up on that energy from her mom even before her mom articulated it. Lisa talks about how she got drunk for the very first time when she was 10.
Wow.
I mean, it's such a young age. But through this meditation retreat, she realizes that even if feelings of insignificance were the source of her anger, there was no changing the past. And Lisa realizes, she writes, I didn't want my failed marriage to dictate my future and slip mindlessly into hating men, couples, or love. I wanted to live in a world where there was enough for everyone, to know that one person's gain was not my loss.
A good sentiment.
There is enough for everyone to go around. And in Lisa's case, there is enough love for her. She's really trying to come to the conclusion that there is still love for her in her life and that she deserves that love.
Like she's shifting from having a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, or you might also say from having a victim mindset to having a creator mindset.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Later on in the memoir, she talks about dabbling in Buddhism. Her kind of sponsor, when she's back living in New York, takes her to chant at a Buddhist temple. And she writes, I loved the promise. Through chanting, you would glow with love, drawing bounty into your life. You became radiant. As I sat post-chant, enjoying the full body reverberation, I believed the assurances. Then the host started the discussion. We eliminate evil karma so we can manifest good fortune and benefit. And this is where it gets a little tricky to Lisa, because she's like, wait, we are asking for things. That's not something that she felt served her, I guess, in the Buddhist religion. She debates whether the spiritual approach to money is being comfortable asking for it, or is the spiritual approach to money accepting what you already have. And I thought that was such an interesting question to ask. I wanted to know what you thought about that.
Say it one more time.
Is the spiritual approach to money being comfortable asking for it, or is it accepting what you already have? Like when it comes to spirituality and prayer and wanting more things, is it okay to ask for it, or are you supposed to just be grateful for what you have?
Yeah, I lean more on the grateful for what you have, or like it's okay to aspire to earn more, but like as a seeking to just like have it mystically happen to you. I don't know. It's the same thing that I feel weird when teams pray for a win, because it's like, what do you think the other team's praying for? And like, why do you think a quote unquote God is on your side more than theirs? Like, what would be more palatable to me is like, can we just pray that everyone like plays their best game, or, something of that nature.
Yeah. But I do think that it's okay to want an abundant life and financial stability. And I think it's okay to want it all.
But I think like wanting that, as I don't subscribe to like any deity, I'm more of just science, nature kind of perspective, humanist, if you want to look that up. But, I think trying to bring out the best in yourself and those around you is always a worthy pursuit.
Yeah. Lisa continues her journey. She really comes to the conclusion that she has to dig into these feelings of insignificance prompted by her relationship with her mother a lot more. And it's extra complicated because her mother is actually dying during the writing of Lisa's memoir, and she passes away before the completion of it, which is why Lisa dedicates the memoir to her mother. She writes, anything that helped me drop my inner critic, no matter how briefly, was worth trying, whether it was mindful eating, aromatherapy, or crystals. These attempts might work anywhere from not at all to temporarily. No matter, I just move on to something else. Did that make me a spiritual dilettante? Perhaps, but according to whom? The idea that pain showed accomplishment was hard to drop, but I'd reached the point where I needed relief from feeling like shit more than I needed to find a way to make myself feel worse. So she tries a bunch of things. She tries energy healing and Reiki, and she meets with a woman, Cheryl, over Zoom. Cheryl's an energy healer, but really what she has her do is confront these issues with her mom. And she asks her, if your mom were here right now, what is one thing that you would tell her? And Lisa thinks for a moment, and then she's like, I don't know. And Cheryl's like, come on, yes, you do. And she says, why didn't you stand up for me? And so she's having these confrontations with her mother via these other wellness approaches, right? It happens later. She ends up going back to India and she partakes in something called a family constellation. It's a group exercise where other people in the class or the group stand in for family members. And in a weird way, the dynamics just present themselves in kind of this mystical, strange way. And she talks about how the person playing her sister stood in between her and the person playing her mother. And she thinks to herself, my mother always did prefer my sister. And it was just kind of one of those weird things, like, why did this person know to stand closer to the mother? It's kind of one of those things that she couldn't really explain, but it triggered something in her. She writes that the teacher said to her, it is you who is doing the rejecting, not your mother. So really, she's going on this wellness journey. She starts it because she's wanting to hang on to her sobriety. Her husband has asked her for divorce. She's feeling insignificant, unworthy, unloved. And she's coming to realize that it's because she's felt this way because of her family the entire time. It's a very long journey that she takes, and she tries all these different things. And she really goes into them in more detail in the book. At one point, she goes to a sex ashram where people are able just to have sex with anybody that's a part of the community. They all have to take an HIV test before they enter. She ends up not having sex there. Like, that's not why she goes. This is where she actually does the family constellation activity. In the end, like, she really does discover that gratitude is more sustainable than anger. She writes, a grateful heart was the best of loving, all outward bound with no sense of need attached to the mood. And so she does find what she's looking for in this journey.
She gets down to the root of why she feels a certain way about herself and sees her quote unquote flaws as these things that maybe aren't really flaws, but responses, protective mechanisms, maybe. Not something bad about her, but just something to be able to acknowledge. I don't know. It's a nice thing to think that these things that we feel are wrong with us are probably just responses to something deeper. You can give yourself grace and then figure it out through whatever means you want. For Lisa, I was trying a lot of different things.
Where does she come back to at the end of this?
In the end, she actually ends up in Florida. A psychic tells her not to go to Florida. It'll be the worst decision of her life. And then she goes to Florida and she finds the man that she ends up marrying next. So she's like, see, who knows? Who knows?
She goes to Florida to spite the fortune teller?
Yeah, despite the psychic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But she writes this: for the duration of my spiritual search, I'd been fixated on detecting my faults. The idea that I didn't need to change myself was a revolution. Chasing down my flaws had proven to be an endlessly unsatisfiable hunt. There would always be something to find. What if instead of foraging for my character defects, I started actively noticing my character assets? The mind is a point of view just like any other, and no matter how we define that point of view, it's not the same as reality. She put herself through the ringer and she came out of it on top. She kind of writes in her memoir what worked for her, but really at the end of the day, she comes to the conclusion that moving forward was more important than holding on to a life that no longer served her.
It sounds like she did a good job of like moving forward, but not trying to do so by sweeping everything under the rug and like pretending it didn't happen. Like she had to do the hard work of processing, or there's that quote of you got to go through it to grow through it sort of thing. So like she had to face those things to move forward. Do I think she had to go across the world and do a silent retreat and yoga training to accomplish all that? No, like you could accomplish that with a good therapist and some good medication if you need it. But back to the sentiment of finding what feels good and, try all the things if they won't do harm and see what sticks. And if it works for you, then that's good enough. And in the same vein, saying like, while we're trying to feel better, right? We all want to feel better. We all want to have a life that is more blissful. The goal is not a perfect life. So at some point we can just say like, what would happen if I stopped trying to like fix myself and just tried to accept myself?
Yeah.
And from there, love myself.
She went into every experience with a really open mind and open heart, but she wasn't banking on that being the thing that fixed her. I mean, she was hoping that it would help unlock these certain things and be the key to something. And then ultimately, the sum of all of these experiences got her to the place where she is today. She writes, when I could see my imperfections with compassion, I found more to let go of. The ongoing task has been, with each new discovery, to start again without judgment. The only reason I know this is thanks to the teachers who didn't tell me what to think, but how to think with honesty, love, and always through a lens of grace.
Yeah, I like the piece of trying to remove the judgment and just be like curious observer more than a judger of self.
Yeah, she starts the book with this poem, and so I just wanted to read it. It's by Rumi, who was a Persian poet in the 13th century. Be crumbled, so wild flowers will come up where you are. You have been stony for too many years. Try something different. Surrender.
I like that.
I like that.
Remember the song that we listened to in high school? I'm pretty sure it's a song called Beauty in the Breakdown.
Yes.
The scene aesthetic.
Yeah, there is beauty in the breakdown. She was able to build herself back up through some wonderful tools that you and I agree with and try to practice in our daily lives. She tried some things that, in my opinion, are a little woo-woo. But like you said, if it doesn't hurt anyone and if you feel like you're not being taken advantage of, I think that's just where it gets tricky. And I do wish that Lisa would have. She definitely seemed to write about the things that helped her and just kind of glazed over the things that she was like, well, I tried this, but I don't really know if it worked. It was really interesting to read the journey that she went on. And in the end, it all just came back to love.
Yeah.
Just love.
Just love.
Yeah. Lisa gets very vulnerable in this book. She allows us to see the mess and her attempt to navigate it using different wellness approaches to heal her wounds and deepen her love for herself. And that's a journey that I can always get behind. People trying to heal, trying to deepen the love for themselves. I'm all about it.
Love you, Alex.
I love you, Jaime. Thank you so much for discussing this book with me today. And I can't wait to have you on again.
Bye, Alex.
Thanks for listening to Babes in Bookland. To access the full version of this episode, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or support us on Patreon. Visit babesinbookland.com for more information.